Dusty, snap out of it!
Any of this look familiar?
Our constellation contact is on approach.
Yeah, but come on. Exploring space? Who does that anymore? Ain't the space we've already got complicated enough?
Welcome aboard the Starfield Report podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Starfield Report podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Smyson, and with me, as always, is Jax. How you doing, Jax?
Doing great this morning. Welcome, captains. I'm glad you joined us.
Yes, and it's another beautiful Saturday morning at 0500 of recording the episode because I have a child.
Put you through, right?
And I have to record when she's asleep. And you're in the you're east.
Jack, oh man, he goes to bed early, so I can't stay up so late.
Yeah, Jax goes to bed early. Andy is 2 hours ahead of me, and my daughter doesn't go to bed till late. And fun times. All right, so last week we had a lot of fun doing the game update. We went through that, and it took us a lot longer to get through that we thought, so we had to push off doing the Unearthed mission until today.
Right. You get the bonus one this month.
Yep. So now the Unearthed mission. Going through this main quest again, I was rolling with that Pilgrim character, but he was just so boring, and I just felt like I was wasting my time, wasting all the XP gain on him. So my space trucker was getting close to getting all his powers and hopping through the Unity, so I went ahead and took him back through it. And over the last 3 weeks or so, I've been just kind of getting through the main quest again. And finally got to the Unearthed mission last night, which it's worth noting, and I think you mentioned this when we did the Entangled mission. The Entangled mission and the Unearthed mission can be done in any order. I think because the Entangled mission, I think, takes place on Gunabu, or whatever that planet is. You go to get an artifact, you think it's just another fetch quest. Which, side note, I'm pretty sure literally every quest in this game at this point is literally just a fetch quest to go get an artifact or a power. If you're doing the main quest.
Information. Go fetch information. Yeah.
And because the first time I did the short version of the universe, and how did it happen? I got Descent to go get this artifact, this one, after I talked to Vladimir. And then when I did when I came across my first alternate universe, when there was Constellation was missing, it was the Hunter, and he had like 6 artifacts on him. He's like, here you go. And so I realized that must have been doing going to Empty Nest with Sam, going to the one guy's ship with Sarah, where he's got it on as a hood ornament, right? So that's what those artifacts were. So the Hunter already had the 6 of those in that universe, which was my previous universe. Anyways, the Unearthed mission. So this mission was a lot of fun for me, just because as a kid I was all about NASA. Do you remember seeing that movie Space Camp? And it came out in the 80s. The kids that actually...
I'm sure it was a comedy, and a bunch of nerds go to NASA camp and get to play around and pretend to be astronauts.
Mostly accurate. They were high schoolers, predominantly. And the one guy who played Viper in Top Gun was in the movie. But the idea, but these kids get launched into space for real, and you have to just completely take logic, chuck it out the window, and watch the movie. But the idea was that one of what happened was they all get in the shuttle to simulate a launch where they kind of like power up the shuttle, but it's not supposed to actually launch. Well, for some reason, one of the boosters, it's got the two boosters. One of the boosters is like gonna launch, and they can't stop it, so they have to launch the kids to space because
For safety.
it's either booster goes like this, or
Right.
okay, so when they get launched to space, it's because they had to power up the second booster to launch them straight up. Now they had a teacher who was an actual astronaut on board, so that was how they were able to get them all back down to Earth safely. But I'm hesitant to watch that movie again because sometimes you go watch those movies that when you saw as a kid that were like the most amazing thing, you watch it as an adult, you're like, But I remember that. So as a kid, just NASA was a lot of fun to me, and so anytime we get to interact with the historical NASA stuff on this one, it's pretty awesome. But the quest starts off with you meet up with the hunter. I just did the quest last night. I should remember. You meet up with the hunter and the emissary, and they tell you. This is where I think first chance you get to pick sides with them, and I'm choosing not to pick sides with either of them. And the emissary. Oh, I made a point to not say anything about being Starborn, right? Because I didn't want to accidentally skip this part of the quest. There's a dialogue option there where you can repeat this quest, the whole quest line, the main quest line. But there are certain times you can say something that just kind of accelerates it a little bit. For example, when you install the artillery on your ship, it prevents that whole quest of fighting the hunter and obviously having him kill one of your crew members. But then he'll still show up on your ship and tell you about the word unity and to make sure you tell Mateo that so you can still go meet Keeper Aquinas. Which I did notice a little dialogue issue there.
Somebody still gets sacrificed, though.
In that one?
Yeah.
No?
Because he says, yeah. He says, don't bother going to the Scourge. I've already taken out the Collector.
Oh. Because he went there to... Which would mean that he has that artifact on him.
That's right. Instead of him coming to the Lodge or the Eye in the universe, if you tell the New Game Plus that you're going to run through it quick, right? Then at this point, this is where it skips through it, and he says, "Hey, so you thought you were super smart by putting it on your, by putting the armory on your ship where I couldn't find it? Well, guess what? I already went to the Scourge. Don't bother going there. That ship's done." So you miss that whole experience of getting to go there and play that part of the quest, which is, I really like that one. I thought that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun quest. But it makes sense because that's the quest where you're forced to take your number 2 affinity companion. You don't understand it at the time, but that's the programming. It's whoever's your number 2 has to go with you, and your number 1 stays on the Eye. So when you land back at the Lodge with your number 2, that's where the split is, and one's up top, one's here. Hunter attacks.
Yeah.
So
you get to keep all the constellation, but he kills the Collector, and you don't get to get on the Collector ship. You don't get to go and play that whole portion of the game, and there's some unique items on that ship. So if you're really into collecting all the unique stuff, then you may not want to skip that part.
Well, are you specifically referring to his suit?
Yes.
Can't you get it from him on the last mission? I don't want to spoil it too much.
I think you can. I think you're right. I think you run into him again.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think, yep. Do. So I think you can still get it. Yeah.
See, those guys at Bethesda, they think of everything.
Almost. So the Unearthed mission. So the emissary, in my case, I got Andreja again, which was interesting because in my previous universe, that's where the hunter was in the Lodge and Constellation didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was not Andreja, but I can't remember who it was. I can't remember, but I remember thinking like, oh, this is not, an alternate version of my wife. And so therefore, when the decision came to side with neither of them, it almost felt a little easier. And so this time it actually felt a little harder again. And this is the first time I told the Andreja emissary, I'm not siding with either of you, because I'm never going to side with either of them again, because now I know I was able to diplomatically talk him down right before the final fight. You still have to kill all those Starborn on the way to getting to them, but once you get into the final temple, well, I don't know. Yeah. Right. So Unearthed mission. So she sends you to the moon. You go to the moon, and I love landing on the moon, the zero G, because this was probably the first real low gravity planet or moon I had landed on up to this point in the game. And so this is where you get the audio recordings from the one guy that talks about the Voltaire supercomputer that's running these calculations.
Yeah, and where did we get this information? And there's the one scientist that says she's going to get led into the cool kids group.
Yep, and she name drops what's his name, Victor, and as the scientist. And so you don't hear any of his recordings until you get down to Earth. But so you're on the moon, and you just kind of get a little glimpse. And this mission in general, there's little to no combat, except for the very end.
Right.
But so it's more of just kind of a
big abandoned vertical warehouse.
Yep. Yeah. And so, well, so the NASA center. So
but you get to collect like the old school. This is where you can get the old school Gemini.
Yeah, the old Mercury.
Mercury, that's right.
Yep. The old Mercury spacesuit. This is where you also, I'm pretty sure, can get a full set of the Explorer suit. Now, I love the Explorer helmet. Not a fan of the rest of the suit. My favorite suit, which is the one you guys see in the title card of the podcast, is the Explorer helmet with the ground crew suit. Because when I think of a space trucker, the actual space trucker suit in the game doesn't look like a space trucker suit, because it's like every, at least all the big companies require to have like a safety vest and be reflective, here on Earth, modern day truckers, right? So that's what I was thinking. That's why I like the ground crew suit.
The bright yellow with the reflective stripes down them.
Yep. And so you had so you learn a little tidbit of information on the moon. We were talking to Judith, that's her name, and she's talking about the Voltaire supercomputer and how she's frustrated because nobody's telling her what's going on. But and like you said, she wants to be invited in the cool kids club.
Yeah, she wants to know where the calculations come from. This is too amazing for it to somebody just drop it in our laps. And she's got questions, and she's starting to wonder what's going on with the leadership and how come I'm not in on this. I should be in on these conversations. I should know where this is coming from. So she's got questions.
Yep. And Victor has answers. So from the moon, you get sent down to the NASA Launch Center, and it's awesome because it's one of the ARC ships, or whatever you call it, one of the huge ships that's supposed to get people off the planet. It just never launched.
Right.
Now that tower, you can it's like a jumping puzzle. I love jumping puzzles in games. I don't know why, but when Guild Wars 2 came out and they introduced jumping as a mechanic, because you could not jump in the first game. You could jump in Guild Wars 2, and they just had every map had every zone across the continent had at least one jumping puzzle. Literally just jump, and so anyways, you can jump your way all the way up to the very top of the NASA tower. And I got a really cool shot of I had the remodeled Kepler R, and it was a sunset, and I was standing on top of the tower, and it was just really pretty. So I have a cool picture of that. But anyways, you get a little bit of loot as you're jumping up your way to the very top. But then you go down inside the the facility, and obviously it's in a lot of disarray, and there's some places where you're going through tunnels of rock because it's just so, messed up. But the point in time when you come into that room with all the historic artifacts was just like, oh, my little kid heart just loved that. Seeing the ISS
Right?
scaled
It was
down.
so good.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you got the ISS scaled down. You've got other historic space artifacts, and then isn't there the little? I kind of sped through it last night because I'd already done it before. I was trying to get through it, but isn't there like little buttons you can push to hear like a little history?
Yes, you can
Yeah.
walk through it. And some of the displays will tell you about like the invention of the HABs and the breakthrough of modular HABs, and it's got like a little, like a little presentation of how the HABs were developed and how the grav drive was in 19 blah 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 year. The grav drive was invented, and it got us to, And so there's these little presentations that you can listen to. I think there's 4 or 5. I don't know exactly. It's again, I just
Yeah.
I know some of it. I listened to a bunch of them. I listened to some of them, and I was like, okay, I know what this is. I don't need to worry about it. So I moved on.
Well, there's the one scaled model ship. I'm pretty sure was the first ship they officially attached a grav drive to, and it was
Yep.
the I don't know if you noticed it when you look at it. It's because I think
I
back.
wanted to recreate it. The first time I went through this, I looked at the
Mhm.
ship, and I walked around it, and I took some pictures of it, and I was like, I'm gonna make this ship over. And I tried to remake the ship. I think there's some stuff. There's some modules on there that you're like, you just don't
Yeah,
get those.
yeah,
So,
you can't. Well, I almost wonder if that ship was maybe before the modular part of ship design was actually developed, because the cockpit is the cabot, the Nova Galactic cabot, cabot, or however you pronounce that. The two story bridge, the huge one. So that's the bridge that's on this little ship, and I think there's other pieces that look familiar, like maybe fuel tanks and stuff that are stuff you can get.
when you go up to on the moon, and it says that it leads you up to the roof
Mm-hmm.
for the first inaugural launch of the grav drive technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're there and you're listening to the pre-recording of the launch. And that's where you kind of get a lot of the explanation of what happened and the understanding of what this means, because you're listening to the recording, and it's the astronauts, and they're already all the way to the other side of the galaxy. Right? It launches, and then 2 seconds later they're on the other side of the galaxy, and they're like, holy smokes, they're, and you get the whole.
Well, I think they go to Jupiter.
Was that on Jupiter?
Yeah, I think they talked about going to Jupiter, which is, I think, why they. And I think they were trying to go to Jupiter because it's the largest planet in the solar system, so they're able to do their calculations, and I think that's why Homestead became the first settlement outside of Mars. Because I think Homestead became the first settlement that was established after using grav drive tech to get there, whereas Mars, we built that colony on conventional space travel.
Right.
But yeah,
It's been a couple of weeks. I didn't think it would take us this long to get here. And I did these missions like a month ago or 5 weeks ago, and I'm trying to remember exactly the conversations and piece by piece exactly how it all.
But you're right. It's from the moon where they talk about that's where they do the first test from.
Yeah. And that's when we start to see all of this. They start discussing Victoria. What's her name? The
Judith.
Judith. Yes, that's the one that we're following her. following her slates, and that's after the launch. Isn't this where she starts talking about? We start hearing about the repercussions of the grav drive and what it's doing, and
Well, oh, God, I
You have to watch
I just
Earth
played
first.
this last night, so I should remember. But I watched. It's
The Earth first, huh?
you find out the bad. I think you find out most of the bad things about this when you're down on Earth, when you're going down through the tower into the facility, because
Mm.
it's pretty. It's a lot of fun doing it the first time, but not as fun on the second trip because you do have to navigate through a lot of just nothing, and I mean you're going through the facility. It's kind of cool to see the history of it, and just kind of at one point you have to fight a couple turrets and a robot. Well, you could even avoid the robot if you really wanted to, because you just have to run. You have to turn the power on to open up a door. That's a mechanic they introduced, I think, in this quest that isn't around before. Those yellow big power cells.
Mhm.
I've learned because this mission always keep one on in your inventory. They're kind of heavy, but always keep one on because you never know when you're going to come across one. And there was
Right.
one time I came across or a, a thing to put it in, and I was trying to find one in the room and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was a side quest or just a random place, but I was so mad, and so now I always keep one of those on me. But anyways, you finally get to the final control room, and when you open well, in my case last night it was one of those emergency doors. There's multiple ways into this larger room, but I opened one of those emergency doors. I shot the pins. The door falls out, and as soon as you cross the threshold, you're weightless. Now it's funny that emergency door you think would just be like,
Right.
and then so I went and shot off. There was another emergency door, same thing. I shot that, and even though it should be
Ruined it
weightless,
for
this
me.
is like boom,
Reality.
Immersion.
Oh, you're kidding.
immersion breaking. So I this is where you come across Victor's body, and you come across some slates that you can listen to, or maybe it was a computer file right where you found his dead body, and basically another version of him, a multi-version of himself, so a starborn version of himself, came to him, told him about the grav tech, how the Earth is going to be destroyed, so he needs to develop this to save humanity.
Right.
But here's the problem: if that if the multiverse never told him that, they never would have invented the grav drives, and Earth wouldn't be. I mean, Hunter does make the point when you go back and talk to him at the end of all this that, well, humanity was kind of destined to destroy itself through war, famine, whatever.
There it is, 1,000 years, but we'd have got to the same point anyway.
Yeah. So, but that is an interesting philosophical point. Like,
The whole chicken and the egg, right?
yeah.
If we make the grav drive, we can escape the dying planet. But the planet's not dying until we make the escape grav drive. So, yeah.
Now, Wicked has from the Dark Star mod author. He has a theory. I don't know if you saw this in his Discord chat, where he thinks that so at this point we already know that the Hunter is a starborn version of Keeper Aquinas, and it's debatable if Keeper Aquinas, as we know him, is already starborn and is simply retired, or maybe it was a version of himself that chose the peaceful path, and never went through the unity, and he's just can always stay in this universe being a spiritual leader, because some of his dialogue kind of indicates he might know a thing or two, because I actually chose to skip the pilgrim thing where last night when I was playing, I chose to skip that just to save time, so I didn't go to get the notes from the pilgrim and all that. But the fact that I don't know. I think the keeper.
He drops a couple of things when you're talking with him and Mateo together.
Yep, exactly.
That let you know that he is in the know, but he doesn't want to spill the beans to Mateo and wreck his religious experience. So he's kind of using a little wordplay to dance around the exact subject.
Yeah, it's like he wants Mateo to learn this knowledge naturally rather than just be told it. So Wicked's theory is that Victor's, the Starborn Victor is the Great Serpent, or whoever. He's the guy that kicked off the House of Varun religion, maybe unwittingly, because he's the one that gave the grav drive tech to Victor. But then what if there's other multiverse versions of Victor that we could see in Starfield 2, who was the one that started, the Varun religion?
Yeah, and the Varun zealots, the Varun religion wants to be the gatekeepers of this knowledge because they feel like they're the chosen ones that were given this special, information, and they were picked by the cosmos. We've yet to actually determine what the Great Serpent is. Is it an idea, a philosophy? Is there actually this like omnipotent being at the edges of the cosmos where the first grav drive made it out to there and ran into this omnipotent being and was blessed with all this information? Or, like I say, is it a philosophy?
Well, maybe that'll be the content, the story of the next big DLC.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's been long enough, Bethesda.
Because
I got to say about it. I've moved on from anticipating their content to just enjoying the mods and the community that I've gotten involved in. Are just they're such great people to just hang out with because they all have this same passion for this game. And I understand that thank you, Bethesda, for giving us this sandbox. But it feels like they've walked away. I know they haven't. I'm sure they haven't.
Give us something.
Yeah.
Give us something.
We need some more because otherwise, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of mods. I'm doing the Veil right now, so I'm doing some quest mods to try to take up some time until you and I get synced back up and move on to the UC, which is going to be our next roundtable mod or our roundtable quest.
Yeah, that'll be fun when we get to that.
Yeah.
Victor. I can see it's interesting when you come across these characters in the game and you try to view them through the lens of what would they be like if they made slightly different decisions and went down a different path. Who would they become? And I can see Victor, like an alternate version of him, just having that thought. I was chosen. I'm special. And then he goes off and maybe for the sake of trying to protect the technology, he decides to create it as a religion. And so maybe he does take like some settlers that are, fairly basic folk and convinces them, through whatever means he can that, I'm chosen. We need to protect this stuff. Some higher being has chosen me. And then they end up developing a religion out of it. It's like in the show, The 100. Did you ever watch that one?
I got through the point where they got all the kids on the planet and they've broken up, and it's kind of the Lord of the Flies kind of a situation.
Well,
but then me and my wife end up starting something else, and I've never made it through episode, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7, but it's like 5 seasons or something of that show.
Yes, there's 6 seasons. Well, I'll tell you this. As a Fallout fan, you will get so much out of that show because each show, each season kind of just echoes stuff from Fallout. I will say this. The first I usually will give a show 3 episodes to hook me because I understand a show is going to be a little slower paced than a movie. So it's going to take more time establishing characters. You got 3 episodes. That one, the only reason we kind of plowed on with it because it was right after my daughter was born. COVID was the thing. I was at home, and so we just plowed through it. And the first, 6, 7 episodes have a little more of the teenage angsty stuff, but then there's a definite shift.
And it just seemed like that was what it was just going to be.
No.
Teenage adventure show.
Yeah, that's the way it came across, like a teenage adventure show. But around episode 6 or 7, somewhere around there's a shift, and I almost wonder if the writers, because the first episodes were probably already in the can, so they couldn't go back and edit it, but they might have had some kind of test audiences viewing the episodes, and maybe that's why they changed it, because obviously you still follow all the teenagers, but they start acting more like young adults. Adults. And the teenage angst stuff kind of falls away. And so halfway through season 1, you're just enjoying these characters doing, as more mature adults. And then like season 2 takes place, a lot of it takes place in a bunker. And so here you are thinking, if you're a Fallout player and there's a nuclear shelter bunker, what are you thinking? Vault, right?
Yep.
So anyways, so all that is to say that in the show 100, that was a rabbit trail. and in the show 100, this one guy, I won't spoil it too much, but he basically does create a religion of sorts. And I could see how that whole setup in that show could basically be used to explain how the Varun and their religion started. So, yeah. So I almost wonder if maybe they took some cues. Maybe some writers at Bethesda watched the 100 and were like, "Oh, okay, this is what we're gonna do." But all that depends on how what we actually discover of House Varun and their religion and origins and what the Great Serpent really is. But yeah, so you when you're in the NASA facility, you're in this 0G room. There's a power switch you can eventually find. That's where Victor's body is, to deactivate it. And it's 0G because there's an artifact that's in a test tube thing. It was the original artifact that they had. I'm assuming the other Victor probably showed up and gave it to him.
The seed of all evil.
Yep. And so that's one of the many artifacts you have to collect on the main quest. And at that point, the hunter and emissary come over the comms and tell you, "Hey, we're topside. Come talk with us." But there's a bunch of other Starborn that are here to kill you. So you fight through a few Starborn on the way up.
I liked that fight.
Yeah.
The first time I did it was challenging. Once you've gone through NG Plus, you got the top tier gear, top tier guns and weaponry, and so after the first time, you know what to expect. It's not that big a deal. But the first time I did it, I was like, "Holy crap! Another one of these guys! Oh, another one! Oh, another one!" Yeah, it was a struggle the first time I went through because you're just learning all this stuff, and there's nothing like the first. If you guys have not played this entire game, I'm probably preaching to the choir at this point, but every time I come across somebody that's a gamer and I'm like, "Have you played Starfield?" "No," and I'm like, "Well, it's for free. It's on Game Pass. You already are doing that. You should check it out." And I think I've converted a few people into playing it just by simple enthusiasm of, look, it's a single player game. It just takes 10 minutes. I don't have time for gaming. You can do this in 10-minute chunks. It's fine.
Yeah.
Single player. You can stop and go anytime you want.
Yep.
So easy to do. You don't miss out on anything. You're not the MMOs where you feel like, "Oh, I missed a season. I don't know if I can catch back up." That's the whole point of these player games is I'm a busy dude. Or, well, I'm not. But some of those out there with young children are busy. They have real lives to go handle. So, you can do this in 10-minute chunks. It's pretty easy.
Well, yeah, and this game being a game you can pause, save, return to later versus an online game, where you're pretty much committed to playing for a certain period of time. Yeah, I know. I'd say ideally if you have 30 minutes, per play session. I mean, at minimum, ideally a couple hours.
There's not a lot of quests that you can't get through at least a segment of the quest in 30 minutes and progress the quest chain.
Yeah,
30 minutes is quite a bit of game time. You can get through quite a bit. You can grind through quite a bit in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say mostly quests in the game. One of these days I should maybe take an hour. Maybe some of them are a little longer.
Some of you don't realize exactly how many little check marks you're marking off down the list. But if you're keeping track of that, it's every 10 minutes or so you're checking off a point on the quest chain that says, okay, go talk to this person, go to this place, go pick up this thing. You're checking them off, bing, 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 bing. So you're always making progress. Yeah. And if you're keeping track of that, it feels good to know and see your progression. You're like, oh, I feel good about myself. I did something today. So we're going to go talk to the emissaries, right? They're standing outside of the NASA facility in the desert there on the Earth.
Yep. And this is where you get to make your final case with them. Because the first time, the first time it's on board the Hunter ship where you meet the two of them. Mm-hmm. And
they send you here.
Yeah.
Basically, they send you down this rabbit. This rabbit.
And they I'm trying to remember if you're given the chance to side up with them then or not, but even if you are, you're given a final choice here who to side with.
I think at that point your choice is more of become a Starborn or remain with humanity. I mean, it's a philosophical choice, and they're like, go before you make decisions. You should go look what your people did.
Oh. Gotcha.
And they send you off down that rabbit trail to go find the truth, young man.
Yep. And that's where I think you can then go do the Entangled mission and the Unearthed mission, and then I think there's just another artifact you can complete because I think there's 3 quests you can do in any particular order.
And well, I got all the way to the point where everything on my quest log was telling me, go do the Entangled mission. There was the Unearthed one was telling me, go do Untangled. Mm-hmm. And there was another one, and then there was the Entangled mission. So I had 3 active quests that I could do on the main quest chain.
Okay.
But I couldn't go any further on 2 of them because they wanted me to go do the Untangled before they would let me proceed with any of the further stuff.
Okay.
So you can get to a point where everything funnels you down to go do that first.
Yeah. Well, and on my Pilgrim character, I had done the Entangled mission, and it was funneling because I had done that one. Then it was starting to funnel me to the Unearthed mission. So it just depends on which order you do them in. But yeah, at this point, you get the choice. Choose: do you side with the Hunter? Do you side with the Emissary? Or do you say, I'm doing my own thing? And it's an interesting dialogue choice because those two are so opposed and are so used to fighting each other. But what's weird is how would they know they've fought each other? Maybe they re-loop the same time period like we do? Because every time we go through the Unity, we go back to that very specific point. So maybe the Hunter
of being in the prior universe.
Yeah. So maybe that's the case with the Hunter. Maybe he's just so used to going back to a certain point, and because he does say how he always faces off with you, and to this point, when you come across a new version of the Hunter, then that version of him has always beaten you, which is why he's still alive. He's probably killed you countless times.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as the Emissary, which in a fun way, if you think about it, if you die when you're playing the game, and obviously we just reload our save and continue, you could almost view that as an alternate or one of the universes where the Hunter won.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The philosophical. So
008, 009, 022,
yep.
023 024. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this was the second time now I've chosen to not side up with, and this is on my space trucker. I chose not to side up with either of them, which was harder to do because this time it was Andresia, who had been my wife in my very first universe. And so, but now I'm like, what? I'm not siding up with either of you. But I also now know, as my character now knows, I can talk them down and not actually have to fight them in that final area.
Moment. Yeah.
So I'm always probably going to try to do that, just from making that decision purely as a character perspective. But
now, are you talking about in there on Earth in the desert, or are you talking about the hidden temple?
in the hidden temple, you can talk them down right before that fight. You have one. When you've cleared out all the other Starborn, and then you load it down. You're in that huge underground temple where the final artifact is. I'm pretty sure I did talk the hunter down one time. I think there was one time I always preferred killing him, but there was one time I was with the emissary there to face off against the hunter, and I think I talked him down just because, I don't know, I just felt like doing it a little different that time. And so that was kind of me as a player, but also my character wanting to just do something different, because it's like, I'm always killing this dude.
Right.
And so
And the hunter makes references to that too, a couple of different times. That's not just the one time. There's a couple of different times he's like, well, this is a different, this is a new approach, or let's try this time, or, I think there's a couple of different conversations where he actually says, kind of in just, I usually just kill you, but let's try something.
Yeah, like he's excited, intrigued by doing things differently, because to him it's such a game, and to the emissary she takes it seriously. But both of them are kind of gatekeepers in a way. There's a certain extent to, well, I mean, the hunter, he's just a gatekeeper because he just wants to get all the artifacts first and go through the Unity again. Basically, is the gist you get from him. But with the emissary, there's this kind of sense of compassion that emissary would have, probably because of the constellation, whatever.
Kind of a parental caring of protect you. So can't you see that me shielding you from this information is protecting you?
Mm-hmm.
It's in a parental kind of I think it's brought to fruition through the game as a parental guidance.
Yeah.
Right. It's dangerous. Fire is hot. Don't touch fire. I can't let you play with fire. But as we know, we all grow up, and then we get to use fire, play with fire, manipulate fire, make fire work for us. And if mom and dad never let us play with fire, we're not going to learn how to not get burned until it's burning the house down.
Exactly.
You got to learn to respect it. And the other hand is the hunter going, here's the lighter, you go take care of it. You know what I mean? You're toddler, go play with fire. And he just wants to send you, I'm going to do my thing, you do your thing. And if we cross, then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Power for power's sake.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, viewing them as a parent is a good way to describe the emissary, because of how it's like they're not being malevolent, but they also are unaware. It's like they're too oblivious to understand how poorly they're treating people by doing this whole gatekeeping thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when you have you ever done the talk them down option in the final temple? Okay. Because the emissary seems to agree to it very quickly. The hunter's kind of reluctant at that point, but is almost intrigued with it. Which that's where the idea that maybe some people say that in that universe where he agrees to just finally not fight, that's when he goes on to become Keeper Aquinas. But Keeper Aquinas is already in New Atlantis, so I'm inclined to think Keeper Aquinas came across all that stuff somewhere in his past, earlier in his life, and then So whenever we see him, it's always a version of him that just said, I'm not going to do the main quest, right? Because like my combat medic, for example, never going to do the main quest. After getting off of Vectera, which I role played that he was there doing side work, and so he has this crazy experience with Artifact, and then he's like, yeah, peace out. I'm not going to mess around with all you crazy explorer people.
Right. You guys are fiddling with the physics of the universe. I'm out.
Yep. So yeah, this mission was a lot of fun. It not as action packed, but definitely deep dives into the lore and explanation of how this is where you finally get explanation of what actually happened. And so the TLDR is a starborn version of a scientist from 200 years prior showed up, giving artifacts, gave the artifact to the other version of himself to then create the grav drives to escape dying Earth. But Earth was died because the grav drive tech. So
yeah, they were on the the cigarette plan of I'm gonna kill the Earth slowly.
Yeah.
Until they get the grav drive. And then they're like, okay, well let's just kill this planet right now.
Yep. 50 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
we're gonna accelerate this.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, that is going to be bringing us to the final mission. I think that one's called Revelation. I think that's where you go face off against the final temple.
It's So they sent you off to the buried temple and kind of give you a challenge of you meet us here behind the gym after school. We're gonna settle this once and for all. So there you are. Now you can go play the game however you want to for as long as you want to, but you always have the opportunity to go fight these two guys. And at that point, that's not even the end either. I mean, it's kind of that settles it between the emissary, the hunter, and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the whole storyline is written, it allows you to, even after that, make the decision to go through the Unity or wait and go through it later. Yeah. So you can play all this extended content. You can go to other worlds. You can do your, outpost building and ship building and stuff like that, and play around for as long as you want and never go through the Unity. But
yeah. I mean, that's going to be.
You should at least go through Unity once.
Yeah,
I think it's just as an experience of the game. It's a part of the game. It was designed to be a part of the game. It was designed for you to experience it. Please, just go experience it. It's a good time. You get to start over. You get to correct all the decisions of your childhood and do them again. How many times would we wish for that in our own lives? You know what I mean? Oh, I sure wish I could go back to high school again and do all that stuff over again. Make a few different choices. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten drunk and arrested that night if I had a second opportunity.
Well, I do wish they would introduce, have a side quest where you're not only in going through the Unity do you go back in time, but you can also choose where to go back in time in your original universe, repeat the high price to pay mission, and actually save your original spouse. Because even if I remarry Andreja in a new universe, it's not my original Andreja, So because I'm gonna try to do that once I'm done going through the Unity on my space trucker, I'm gonna do the short version of the universe, and then try to romance her to see if that works, where she knows I'm a Starborn, and I'm going to see if there's any dialogue options eventually as I'm romancing her to tell her, just so you know, we were married, I married, because I know all of them have a different way of engaging with you once they find out you're Starborn, because they Andre is just definitely more standoffish. She's like, yeah, we were, that wasn't me. We were, that we weren't friends. That was another universe version of me, right? So I look forward to trying to romance her through that lens and see what happens. And let the chips fall where they may. So, all right, Revelation is the main quest finale. So for those of you wanting to send any feedback in, send it in Friday, May 30th, so we can talk about it on our recording early the following morning.
Do you get to? Can you paste a couple of pictures of my spaceship on the end of this episode?
Yeah. Send in some pictures, and I'll put it in the end credits here. Yeah.
Finally got it.
If any players
really happy.
Oh, you finally got it dialed in. Nice. Yeah. And listeners, if you have any pictures or any feedback, send it in to starfieldreport@gmail.com. And any pictures you send in, I'll throw in the end credits of each of these episodes so other people can see your ships.
Yeah. We'd love the engagement, guys. So keep engaging with us.
Indeed. Alrighty, folks. Well, another fun trip down the main quest here. I'm getting excited to do the UC Vanguard next, though.
Me too.
That's gonna be a fun one. So, and my Ronin assassin is itching to get her feet wet in that quest. All right, folks. Well, take care. Jax, any final words?
Drive fast. Take lots of chances.
Alrighty. Take care, everybody. We will see you in the Starfield.
Now that was some fine work under pressure.
Get out of here, Dusty. You're on to bigger things.